a note, a mortgage, a deed, and the difference. Deed is who owns the property, and that's true in all 50 states. Whoever's name is on the deed is the owner of the property, and that's just how it is. Whoever's on the deed owns the property. The note is the debt. The mortgage is the security instrument connecting the debt, the note, to the deed. A mortgage is governed by a certain set of laws. The deed is governed by a certain set of laws. And the note is governed by a certain set of laws. The origination of the mortgage loan agreement is governed by different laws. And the servicing of the note and mortgage agreement by the mortgage servicer and the borrower on the borrower is governed by a different law. And any collection attempts on that note and mortgage are governed by another set of laws. I can do this efficiently over a few minutes and lay things out because I have been doing this law for 25 years and I know what I'm talking about, which makes me somewhat unique in YouTube as far as I can tell from watching a bunch of knuckleheads talk about it. So the deed is who owns the property, the physical property, the real estate. The note is the debt. The mortgage is the security that connects the debt to the property, which I already said that. The note is governed by the Uniform Commercial Code, Article 3, and there's a bunch of TikTok warriors out there who are certain they understand they are the only source of wonderful information because they watch TikTok and some knucklehead told them what a note is. A note is a negotiable instrument. That there were arguments in the past as to whether the note should be a negotiable instrument because the actual payment amounts and payment dates might change, which is inconsistent with the definition of a negotiable instrument. But the law has come down. This has been litigated to the ends of the earth in the 70s and late 60s and early 80s. Every single state in which I'm aware, I'm sure it's every state, has come to the conclusion that the note is in fact a negotiable instrument. So you might think it's not, but you're wrong. The mortgage is not a negotiable instrument. The mortgage is a mortgage. It's a lien. It's a secured lien on property. And the mortgage is governed by Uniform Commercial Code, Article 9. Article 9 is not as clearly understood by the courts as Article 3 is. This was clearly true during the aftermath of the Great Recession. But even since then, courts do sometimes get Article 9 wrong. It's a point of continued litigation in New Jersey, but in general, Article 9 is pretty well sorted out. Fundamentally, it's not a source very often of a defense to a foreclosure. I know people are going to go, wait a second, I had a securitization audit and said Mickey Mouse owns my mortgage, not the company that's trying to foreclose. All right, maybe not. There's a bunch of complicated scams going out there on securitization audits that make the conversation really complicated. But the long and short of it is UCC 9 governs mortgages. The deeds are governed by real estate law in your state. There isn't any uniform real property law. The origination of the mortgage loan is governed by the Truth in Lending Act and partially by the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, the original one prior to amendments through the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau that took effect in 2014. Those original concept of RESPA was to make sure that every exchange of money related to the real estate transaction was disclosed in the same real estate transaction in order to prevent real estate fraud at closing by people hiding funds from banks and from each other and committing fraud all over the place. The servicing of the debt of the mortgage loan agreement is governed by the new part of RESPA. That's Regulation X, was regulated by the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Now that Trump has dismantled that, it's a little unclear who regulates it, but the regulations are still in place, and even the orange wrecking ball moron isn't going to be able to blow those up very easily. So RESPA gives borrowers the right to fair servicing. And the fair servicing includes what you might expect would be included in the definition of mortgage servicing. Do the escrows right, do the accounting of payments right, do all these things right, disclose who the investor is when you ask, all this kind of stuff. The Truth in Lending Act governs that you are entitled to monthly mortgage statements, and if they don't come or they're wrong, you potentially have a truth in lending claim. If there is a foreclosure action or any action to enforce the debt, then the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act is implicated by either the third-party collector, who might be the attorney, or it might be a sub-servicer hired by the master servicer to collect. It depends, or both. And it also governs the actual owner of the debt, so long as their principal purpose is collection of debts. That definition was adopted by the Supreme Court for the first time of the United States a few years ago. I think 2 years ago, very recently. And I don't think that there has been a clear consensus among the various federal circuits as to whether a mortgage servicing company's main business is collection of debts. They do other things too. Once that gets sorted, if it gets sorted in the right direction, then the FDCPA is going to be a powerful statute to help regulate misbehavior by mortgage servicing companies. All right. It's a lot of data in there. And I guess the point of this is that's how it works. I mean, that's the legal framework from 30,000 feet looking down is how the industry is regulated. It's really insane the amount of information you need to know in order to make sense of all of this, which is why there really aren't that many attorneys who do this work. It's just deep nerd out territory. I love it. I do well by it. I do well by people who rely on me and give me a call. So, but this isn't an advertising video. This is just sort of trying to add a voice of experience and knowledge to the conversation to try to drown out the nonsense. I know, it's like shoveling against the tide, but I gotta try. All right, everybody. Any questions about any of that aspect, let me know. And if you leave me comments that are stupid, I'm going to delete them.